Speaking of food, we went to, I don't know if Aunt Sue, we went to dinner with, I told you, but we went to dinner with the neighbors the other day, the Turkish neighbors that they have,
Oh, yes.
right? It's funny because it's so amazing to me how, I mean, it just is the culture shock, but the husband, Ahmet, doesn't speak any English really. So
Okay.
it's wild to think about how someone who has no clue how the language works just comes over and is like, let me start a new life. Like I that is wild to me to not even come prepared. But his wife speaks really good English and his son does as well. He went to Rutgers. But
In Helen with 3 words, go to hell.
oh really? I didn't realize that she knew
She
so
told me
such
that
little.
she only knew go to hell when she got on that plane and flew over here. But she learned, she's a smart lady. She learned a lot
Oh,
on the
okay, gotcha.
plane. And by the time she came to America, obviously she was picking it up pretty quickly because, they have all the basic languages. But
Right.
English is tough.
Yeah.
It's not as easy to pick up that in English, the English language, because
Right.
we don't base it on anything.
But it
See, a
was
lot.
funny. It's funny because we're talking for it was probably a 2 hour dinner, and I felt bad because he's kind of like left out of the conversation, and his wife has to really help translate everything from person to person. And
Right?
I asked him because over there in Turkey, with Istanbul and all that, they're really into their fighting and their football, right? They're into like Muay Thai kickboxing and stuff, and
Okay.
UFC and boxing. So the second I said boxing, it was like, oh, boxing! Like he knew he
Oh,
was like finally something to talk about, but it's tough with the language barrier. I told him Mike
yeah.
Tyson was fighting again, and he goes, "What, Mike Tyson?" Because he doesn't
I
keep
didn't
up
know
with it.
that.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
so
Okay.
yeah, it's just mind boggling to me, and I guess humbling. I guess is the right word, that it is possible to do. You can go to a foreign country and get by uh, pretty easily, especially when no one really speaks Turkish. So I just
Yeah,
thought that
I
was
know.
really
We don't
interesting.
cater to that language. God knows we cater to the Slavic or the Spanish Latin languages
Yeah.
now. All those people don't speak English and they have no problem coming
Well,
over our border.
let's be honest though. We're the problem. We're the only ones that don't speak another language in the sense of every other country, America is the standard. Or English is the standard, I should say, not American. So like Brazil, most of my Brazilian friends speak English. Same with Mexico. China even speaks high English. Like there's really no place that doesn't speak English, which is nice.
But that's the beauty of our country.
Yeah. Beauty
That
till
they
you're
have
out of the country. Yeah.
variety. I mean, we have every the irony is for all these countries that scream, "Oh, DEI," and they're so diverse. America is, by its very definition, the most diverse nation on the
Yeah.
planet. And we've been that way since day one. But we knew and continue to know, just as the Romans knew, by the way. So we go back that far. And all the other great conquerors, that you need a common language. You need
Yeah.
some commonality, or the people aren't cohesive. So how do you take people that are coming from countries all over the world and make them cohesive? You can't just have the Italians, you can't just have the Irish, you can't. How do we manipulate? Because we had a common language
Right.
and common belief in the American system. So
So it
that
was
helps.
what's interesting because we were talking about Turkey, and I know some things about Turkey and Istanbul, but Turkey used to be kind of the capital of the world when it came to trade, right? They
Yeah,
were like the big
Constantinople.
Constantinople, yeah. So Constantinople, because of Constantinople, I mean the amount of languages and cultures there, it might be on par with America. It doesn't have the sample size, but to your point, there's not one language. It's kind of funny how it works. They have a language where, of course, you have Turkish and whatever, but they were telling me, the neighbors, you have Arabic, you have Slavic, you have, I mean, Kurdish, you have like literally
Yeah.
every language, but high populations. So it's not like here in America. Well, you'll go to New York City and maybe a handful of people speak Spanish, or a handful of, well, more than Spanish, but like German or Kurdish or whatever.
Right.
Like the way Turkey is kind of designed is you have massive areas of people speaking Kurdish, massive areas of people speaking Arabic, massive areas. Like it's kind of, Turkey might not be as diverse, but it's kind of funny how separated it is as one country. You know?
Yeah, well, I can't speak to recent years because it's been conquered many times and they've had
Yeah.
Western influence come in and go out. But when I think of Alexandria, who was the original conqueror of the Turkish area and involved in the setting up of Constantinople and whatnot, he did allow them to keep their own religions and keep their own language, which
Hmm.
probably might have been a mistake. He meant that, rather than conquer the people and have them hate us, it's better to let them keep their ways as
Right.
long as they pay the tax. Like, that's
Right.
all you need. I want the money. I want the economic growth. Did that help or hurt? I don't know. I just know in our country, and that's the beauty of our diversity, strength through power or strength through, money, basically. We were economic power from day one. If you wanted to deal with us, you needed to learn English. I don't need to deal with Brazil. I
Yeah.
mean, back in the old days when we were superpower, I don't need you, Brazil. You need us.
Right.
And they just naturally would say, well, since there's so many languages in the Americas to deal with them, I got to learn English because they all know English.
Yeah.
I, some may know Spanish, some may know Italian, some may know Irish, Slavic languages. I'll tell you this: my relatives very rarely spoke German outside the house. When
Right.
they were at the food store, whatever, they spoke English. And our recent friend, Mrs. Rice, she would not speak Spanish outside of the house. Like that was not her main language.
Hmm.
And when I go to the stores now, I find it hard in our area. I find it hard to find people speaking English, and I don't
Really?
just mean Latin. Yes, it's European languages, everything, and it bothers me because that's not that's not assimilation, right? That's
Right.
not, and that's the problem that we have nowadays with immigration. They're not assimilating. They're coming in and taking over.
Well, to your point, I guess that's kind of what happened with Constantinople, right? You had one country that basically got separated in itself by the different types of languages, different types of cultures and stuff, instead of kind of bringing them to one.
Well,
So
what you
to your
also have
point,
to
it
remember
depends on how you
too,
look at it, right? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? To your point, really depends on what the outcome is.
well, you're missing the biggest part about that area. That is a Muslim area.
Yeah.
Muslims are tribes,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So that by its nature, over the centuries, everything's been influenced on that side of the world by your tribe, Shiites, the Shias, the Shiite. Every Muslim has a different, or
Right. It's
every
different.
area has a different tribe of the Muslim faith with their own, not I don't
Right.
want to say belief system, but history of who they think is in charge, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
In our country, we have many faiths, but because the religion isn't the dominant factor in our country, it's not
Separation of church and state.
well, Judeo-Christian, yes, we're based on those foundations, but there are many different religions here, and they so far mix together.
Right.
That's why some people are now having problems with profoundly or distinctly Muslims areas in say Minneapolis and Minnesota, where it's you walk in that area and you don't think you're in America. That's a problem. Even in the ghettos in the olden days, yeah, it was very Italian. Everybody spoke Italian, whatever, but they still hung their American flags. They still believed in the American ideal. Fast forward to immigrants now you have a country where we used to blend our faiths and blend our cultures. It's not blending so much anymore. And that was a friend of mine from the UK. She warned me of that years ago because the UK was getting a lot of immigrants in. And she would say, I have no problem with immigrants. It's when they don't assimilate.
Right.
So they want to change our culture, not add theirs to ours. They want to change it.
Well, you see that the UK is kind of falling apart right now with all the elections going on. You saw Macron, however you want to pronounce it, lost his preliminaries or whatever.
That's in France.
Yeah,
Yep.
France.
Yep.
Like, apparently it's just riots like crazy over there right now. But like in
Well,
a good way. It's weird.
there's a conservative movement over in
Yeah.
Europe, and it's yes, the Labour Party won in the UK this week,
Hmm.
um, and the Labour Party is the liberal left, but they won by less than they've ever won before. And a conservative gentleman by the name of Nigel Farage got a certain number of seats. Their government works differently than
Yeah.
ours, so you gain seats, and you have to gain the appeal of all the MPs and all the different groups, whether from Scotland, different Ireland, remember it's different islands in the UK. So for them, it was a victory because they finally got seats. But they have kind of a long game in the sense that they're looking forward to 2029 because now they think they have the opportunity to do things.
Hmm.
Even in France, same story. So the Conservative Party is winning, but they're not going to have an election until I think it's 2027 to get rid of Macron. Difference is can't do much anymore because he doesn't have the majority opinion. I
Oh.
guess it's kind of the same idea in the UK. But what's really crazy, I was reading an article, Mark Stein was commenting about the general culture over there, political culture in the UK. He's from the UK. And they were quoting him, but you have immigrants who have been waiting, who are now saying that they're coming. Nothing's going to stop them now from coming to the UK, where they've been trying for the last few years, the Conservative Party, to hold off. Not say don't come, but just wait, wait, wait. So we have our own problems to worry about when it comes to immigration in this country. But when I see that, I feel really bad for the UK. I think, if the liberals aren't in check, they're going to lose their identity. The UK is teetering on that. And it's nice to see the people of the country out in the streets with their UK flags. And in France, they were rioting because they've had enough.
Right.
So,
well, speaking, you know what they could do? You know what they could do, Mom? They could just have AI presidents.
Oh my gosh.
This is, it's funny because we were joking about this recently, but now it's like an actual reality. So this is not satire. This was an actual post by, who was it from? It was the
Huffington Post.
Oh, it is the Huffington Post that actually did it.
Yep.
So basically they're saying, hey, this guy's struggling. Maybe we should start doing AIs to make this guy look a little better. And it's like, hold on. This is exactly what people joked about a year ago of having deep fakes of people to like presidents and voiceovers and stuff.
A year ago, they were making comments a week ago before the debate.
Right.
That conservative media is doctoring these photos and creating deep fakes.
Yeah.
They just tried to do that before the debate.
It's just funny because do you remember? Okay, Ray, I'm going to take you back. Do you remember the video? This had to be 2 years ago. It was Biden walking on the green across to, he's going to Air Force One, and there's a guy with a microphone that has one of those fuzzy things on it. And you asked me if it was real or fake, and it was manipulated. Yeah. So it's funny because we were joking about that back then, but now everyone's starting to go back a little bit and be like, oh, wait, maybe these were deep fakes the whole time. So it's just funny because now you start looking at everything differently because now even big companies are saying, hey, let's start deep faking AI, deep faking our president so that he looks better in certain situations. Yeah, the
Huffington Post wants Biden campaign to use AI. Use it to hide his dementia. They're literally saying that.
Yeah, this is verbatim.
How do they justify this? Because we're too distracted by all that stuff. We're not finding out all the real things and the true things he's doing.
Yeah.
This is the mentality of the quote unquote media. And I think everybody of all walks, just take a step back and take a breath. I have a media company that they want to fake stuff for you. They just complained a week ago that the other side of the political aisle, they're creating fake things and it's not true. But now it's okay for them to do it because, they're right. Everybody else is wrong.
Right.
They're right. And they weren't right about supposedly how demented the guy was. And now all of a sudden they're like, how could we not know? They're just so full of crap. I mean, you can't even hide it anymore. That certain media is just such garbage media and fake news. They all mock the past president. Fake news. It's exactly what it is. And they don't even hide it.
To me, it feels like, and I kind of look at it in a different way. It's because we're the ones making the changes. It's real news. You see what I'm saying? So their mindset is it's a deep fake that we're doing, and we're a reputable website, so we can make this change, and it is true. Right? It's almost like they're trying to change the fact because we're the ones that determine the facts. Right?
Exactly. So that's what I mean. They justify it because they're always right.
Yes.
Everybody else, all the conservative people, they're wrong. They're crazy. They're nut jobs. They're MAGA. That's that whole, and I don't even say it's Trump oriented. They have been doing this for a very long time. They're just doing it in overdrive now, and they have exposed themselves.
But it's not even that they exposed themselves, but it's like they've tricked themselves into thinking that what they're doing is true. So it's almost like, because it's I guess it's not virtuous, but it's literally them going, There's a shred of truth here, but we can change the truth. And then we're not trying to convince you it's true. It is true because we're the ones that made it. And I feel like a lot, they're trying to lie to themselves to justify what they're doing. And then they don't realize that they're messing up real bad. Right. It's funny. But I also want
the exact opposite of what media is supposed to do.
Exactly.
All media is supposed to do is to get at the truth, whatever that truth is, even if they don't like it. Even if it's something they don't agree with. And that's why we have gone so far in the media circle, and now they expose themselves. these supposed pantheons of media, the New York Times. It's a garbage paper now because they can't get their story straight. And as more, I'm hoping over time that even the most, crazy people that follow this stuff, at least are they taking a breath and saying, how come the Times is changing their story here? Or how come the Huffington Post is now saying it's okay to do a deep fake?
Well,
Then when
even
do you
better.
know if it's the truth or not?
Right. Even better. When you look at, like, if you have one topic and you look at every single news article, or whether it's right or left, how can we get a different story every time? Right. Ideally, if it's news, it should all be the same story. But
Russia turned out to be fake. They've never once said, oops, we made a mistake. Okay. Hillary Clinton and the election and her being involved in Russiagate never retracted it. Hunter Biden laptop. I mean, that is the most blatant.
I know. And no one talks about that one
out there. And they've never once been around to say, oh, it turns out that it is true. Okay. You're a news organization. By any other, put it this way, when we had intelligent people in this country, and not more educated, obviously, farmers and workers who knew right from wrong and could see through crap. These news outlets wouldn't last a week back in the olden days, when supposed people weren't educated, because it's garbage what they're putting out, and they don't change their tune. You mark my words, someday people will find out that January 6th was a hoax. They will find out that the 2020 election was stolen. They will, and the news medias will report it, and they will never apologize. They'll never justify why they did it.
You know what's funny?
Let alone the vax stuff, but I won't go into that.
I notice this a lot nowadays whenever I see articles, whether it be on Google or whatever. What happened to opinion pieces? Do you remember, like, the New York Times used to have opinion pieces? Everything's based on...
Everything, Raymond, Chris, everything is an opinion.
Exactly.
Piece.
It's gone. Right. So that's what's funny. There's
media. It's not journalism.
You don't need the facts anymore. Like, there used to be articles that were just facts. It would just tell you what happened. Right.
Yep.
And then you would have in the newspaper, for those of you that aren't old enough for newspapers, you would have the section for opinion pieces, which usually referred to an article in the paper or it was already built in. Same with articles online. Now, they don't even have that anymore because everything is based on the opinion. So that instead of giving you the facts, it'll already, when the first sentence or two, you already know what this person's opinion is on where this is going. Right? It just becomes biased articles. That's why.
I will say there are good journalists out there.
Oh, absolutely.
Some of them do work at the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Financial Times, the Huffington Post.
Yeah.
They're limited, in my opinion, in what they could do. Because if they go too far and not push an agenda, they're looked at as being bad journalists. So the whole definition of journalism has kind of, it's changing. And we need to get back to what is a journalist? What does it mean to be a journalist? And sometimes it's not, your opinion has nothing to do with it. It's just giving you the facts.
Yeah. It's a dying breed, the journalism. It really is. Like, unless it's, well, honestly, the highest degree of journalism we have now is sports. I mean, you have statistics and then that's it. Very rarely will you see people try and, let's put it this way. When it comes to who's the greatest of all time, it's really between LeBron and Jordan, right? And you go by stats. No one's throwing in like a Klay Thompson. Like that, it's more clear cut than when some of the stuff that they do.
Have their opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
But and that's the difference between somebody reporting sports scores, and somebody having an opinion. So if you watch CNN or Fox News or MSNBC, 99% of that is opinions. Yeah. It's not political information.
Right. But what I'm saying with sports is at least you have stats to back it up. And what I mean by that is there's tons of video evidence. You could just go through stat cards of you can't flub those numbers. It's not very easy to flub those.
A person can have an opinion of which stats are more valuable than others.
Right.
They can have an opinion of, how one guy did well because the competition was weak during his time, or coaching was different, or there was no 3-point shot. That's where the opinion side of it comes in. And you can have an opinion about politics, but it's very hard to now have a valid opinion if you're basing it on fake information.
There you go. So that's what I mean. And then what I was going to say is a lot of these opinion pieces, it's like, it feels like, hey, we're talking LeBron and Jordan here, and you're throwing in Klay Thompson. Like, where is this coming from? There's no evidence behind this. There's no, you're just kind of pulling from nothing. And I feel like a lot of articles nowadays do feel like that. Yeah. Right. And I'm trying, I know I need an example, but I just can't think of one.
They're hiding the stats that are right in front of you. Mm-hmm. They're saying that, well, Jordan didn't trip in the game, and no, Jordan didn't fall getting up the seat, and no, Jordan didn't stumble. He didn't miss the shot
Right.
when actually he did. And then trying to convince people that no, what you saw isn't true. And then when somebody finally turns around or Jordan comes out and says, yeah, I was missing shots like crazy, the media is now like, oh, what do you mean he was missing shots? How could he miss shots?
Yeah.
You saw it. You were there. You were supposed to report that, and you didn't. You have no right to turn around now to your audience and say, how did we, meaning the collective people, miss it? When you had a whole other news agency that was legit giving you the legitimate stats that he fell, he missed shots, he did whatever, and turn around and say that they're making it up. I mean, this is the absurdity of the political media nowadays, where we said this in the last podcast. I didn't care about the debate. I knew he was demented. Most people did know that. What I find shocking is the media is actually trying to spin it like, how could the White House hide this from us? Right?
Yeah.
You weren't hiding anything. It was out there, but you didn't want to see it, or you purposely hid it.
Yeah. Well, the question is, what are they going to do about it? How conservatives can make it very hard for Democrats to replace Biden, because that's what's probably going to end up happening, or at least attempt. But
well, all the political junk this week. I mean, I can't even watch it all.
That's what I was going to say.
What's going to happen? But
what's funny is, ever since the debate, right, and I'm hoping other people can vouch for me on this one, the only thing I see now is just more mistakes from Biden. It's almost like it's gotten worse with the mistakes. I beat him once, I'm gonna beat him again in 2020. All of a sudden this week has just been stumble after stumble after stumble. It's almost like even the left media is trying to push as much information to bring his numbers down so they can forcibly throw someone in. That's what it feels like, but I feel like it's backfiring. I feel like half of them are on no, we need to make good content so that it looks like he's doing better than the debate showed. Whereas the other half, it's like, no, we got to bring this guy down so we could bring a Michelle Obama or an Oprah in to take the spot, So it's just funny how
they're in a pickle. They're in a total pickle now, and they don't know what to do. And their insurance policy of Kamala Harris polls worse up against Trump. How do you feel of that? You poll worse up against a demented guy, a man with dementia, versus the under candidate that supposedly everybody hates. Apparently not. Okay. So that's where they're at. They put this individual in, chose her as vice president. She didn't check any of the boxes other than she was a woman of color. Okay. Right. That was it.
And remember, in 2014, she was Indian. I just saw that. She claimed she was Indian.
Still Indian, but so they put it up there. She's their backup person. And now all of a sudden, they're all trying to jockey to set up a narrative. If he pulls out, how do we put somebody else in? If he pulls out, how do we keep Kamala in? If he stays in, what do we do? So they're all throwing out shit and see what sticks on the wall, and to see what will finally be the outcome. So the Heritage Foundation, which is a conservative group, they have the Oversight Project, is making sure that he can't withdraw legitimately.
Right. Well, hey, Monk, real fast, can I pause you? Was this article before? So this was the 21st of June. This article, is before Biden announced that he was going to run again, because he said he's going to run like as of 2 days ago or yesterday.
Well, after the debate, everybody was saying, he's got to pull out. He's demented. And we've all seen on the conservative side, we know he's dementia. We know he couldn't make it. No. People who were saying was going to make it through the summer, let alone, or the conservative sites were saying, how are they going to bolster this guy to get him through this debate and through the rest of it, not realizing he was going to do that badly on the debate. I mean, that was the shocking. That was
really bad.
How badly he did. How they allowed him to go out there and do that badly. So now the question becomes even more legitimate. What's interesting is those who follow the politics, they've been blaming how many people for being election deniers? How many Republicans? Do you admit that Joe Biden is the legitimate president? Are you an election denier? Okay. Fast forward, same thing as the media. Now we're at the point where, are they going to deny the election of their own Democratic people who cast their vote for Joe Biden? Are they going to wipe those people away and say, you know what, we're putting somebody else in? That's a big question. That becomes then the party of election denial. Will the media report that like they did? Will they go after and harass every Democrat like they did to the Republicans? In every interview, you had to stand there like they called it the Soviets would do this, push you, push you, push you. Do you admit that it was 2020 was legitimate? They would do that at every interview, especially back, after the election was over, and they were saying, well, we got some issues here. Okay. So now Heritage Foundation, they want appropriate election integrity procedures followed, because the primary is an election.
Right.
It's an election that leads up to, and there are rules and regs. If
Yeah,
he withdraws, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and every state has different rules on when you can drop out, I believe. Right.
Right.
So like,
Some
if
have
he,
no rules.
some have
Some
no rules.
don't have rules about it because it's never happened or was not an issue.
Right.
So if he withdraws before the DNC National Convention, keep in mind, there's still an issue as to when that is. The actual convention is in August in Chicago. But recently, we talked to the last podcast. The DNC was playing around with the actual dates. And now all of a sudden they were going to do it on a Zoom call, because remember, Ohio wasn't going to be able to get their delegates in on time because they have to name their candidate for the Democrats before the date for the DNC. So things were changed, and supposedly it was happening at the end of July in a Zoom call. So that's still out there. So they want to, the DNC then picks a new one. And he cannot be replaced in some states, to your point, Georgia, Nevada, and Wisconsin. Wisconsin says only death can he withdraw. Only if the person died.
Wow.
But keep in mind, Wisconsin Supreme Court, they just elected new judges about, 6 months ago? Very shady how that happened to their Supreme Court. Very suspicious how they managed to get a whole liberal Supreme Court out there. Okay, fine. They just announced that they're going to allow unmonitored drop boxes again in the next election.
Unmonitored drop boxes. That's what we like to see.
Okay. All right. So the only way he can pull out is if he's dead. So needless to say, it's kind of to their advantage to have nobody watching drop boxes, right? Who's checking? Nevada. You cannot change after 5 p.m. on the fourth Friday in June of the election year. So we're past that
Yeah,
point.
we're past it.
Unless death or they're deemed insane or mentally incompetent. Oh, check.
Yeah.
That could happen.
Yeah, I think.
And Georgia, if he withdraws 60 days before the election, the name stays on the ballots, but they won't count the votes for that individual. Right. So basically, Trump would win that state. Texas, up to the 14th day. No, I'm sorry. The 74th day. I don't know what it is. Up to the 74th day before the election, you can withdraw.
So 74 days before the election, you can withdraw. That's a weird number. What is that?
Yeah, I know. I don't know why. There must be a reason for it. I didn't calculate it, but so in some states they have no rules.
So basically, it's too late for him to pull out at this point. He has to. Right. Yeah, he has to run it through, whether he wins or not.
Or insanity, right?
Is that Article 25, which is the one that lets you pull a president for insanity?
Article 25 can happen anytime. It doesn't have to be an election year. And that has to be his cabinet deciding, I believe, with the vice president,
gotcha.
that he's deemed insane or has mental cognitive issues, whatever, and he cannot execute his job as president. That was what they were saying. You know, we said about this in the last podcast. I'm less concerned about the election as I am about this is the man running the country now.
Right now, yeah.
And he's completely exposed. It's like we've shown every enemy our underbelly to drive the knife in. We don't have a commander in chief. We don't know who's running the country. It's a real shit show. And, you know, everyone's holding their breath. Just get us through November 5th at this point.
Right.
And meanwhile, the DNC is, you know, they're tap dancing and trying to figure out what the hell to do here. And the Heritage Foundation is saying, you know, you're limited in what you could do. You made this mess and you got to live with it.
You know, it's bad when Jake Tapper, right? Jake Tapper is the one that's like starting to side with conservatives a little bit. He's like, yeah, Biden's not doing well. We need someone else. I'm like, damn, if Jake Tapper's saying that, who's a super anti-Trump.
Yeah. And the Biden group is adamant that he's not pulling out.
Yeah.
Okay. They're
going to pump him with so much stuff.
Black groups, I don't know what terms to use. I'm not sure which group it was, BLM or whatever. Some black political caucus said, don't even think of bypassing a black woman for a white man. There goes Mr. California.
Yeah, there goes Newsom.
And any other white person, they've already said, we'll go nuts if you do that, right?
Yeah.
So that's their choice. And I don't feel sorry for them. And I cannot wait. November 5th can't come fast enough for our nation, not just for a particular candidate that you like or don't like. I just think we need stability here. This is crazy.
So when Trump is in office, have you heard of this Project 2025? Have you heard of this? So tell me if I'm wrong on this one, in the sense of, I feel like this is just a written out version of what every politician or every president that goes in plans on doing. Get rid of everything that the president did beforehand, and then go over it. Like, I don't know why everyone thinks it's a big deal.
Because that's what the left's doing to make the conservatives sound like they're nut jobs. That's their goal. We're all nut jobs. We're crazy because we believe in democracy. We're
Right.
crazy because we believe that the president of the United States has the power to do things. It's just like we said at the beginning. It's wrong when we think it, but they're right. They can think it. Their
Right.
president can do it. Their president can do executive orders. Their president can do it because he's right.
Right.
You people are wrong.
Well, I forget if we
Okay?
talked about it in the last podcast, but again, this is just a written out plan of what everyone does. So Obama was in office, did some things. Trump used his executive orders to get rid of what Obama did, like Obamacare and whatever. And then they said, oh, Trump has the highest executive orders. And it's like, okay. Then Biden comes into office and he uses executive orders to get rid of everything that Trump did. And now he has the highest of all the executive orders.
Project 2025 isn't just about executive orders. What Project 2025 is about, and you're right, it's exactly what every other president has done.
Yeah.
When Barack Obama came into office, literally the first day, the pink slips went out to every conservative who ran any agency or was involved at the highest levels, including the military. He drove a lot of older conservative generals, forced them to retire early, and put a lot of his own generals in and military leaders. So for those of you who sit there saying, how do we have so many? Why do we have so many this, that going on? Why is the
Whoa,
military
you
doing so
can't
badly?
use that word anymore, Mom. People are getting
Sorry,
banned
you
left
can
and right.
Okay, well, you can switch that, bleep me, whatever.
You can't
But
be saying
why
that
do
in
we
public.
have this in the military? Okay, well, this has been going on long before Biden. It was baked in early on, and Trump had to deal with the result of that. What Trump didn't do, because he was not a politician, right? He was a businessman who knew politics, and he's not a fool, but he didn't have the traditional conservative strength and made the mistake of relying on people who really didn't know much better either, like family members and stuff. He looked at it like, well, they've been doing it for 20 years. Leave them in. I'm sure they'll do a good job. Well, he learned his lesson with the FBI, the CIA. We're still feeling the ramifications of the people that he left in those offices that turned on him and frankly turned on our nation, some of whom committed treason, right? In office in front of him. And he didn't know better. We all can only hope that he, like the other presidents, learned a lesson. And day one, Project 2025, we're clearing out all the lefties. We're clearing them out. Trump tried to put in an executive order right before he left office, which basically stated, and I know heads were going to explode. They went nuts when this happened. Government employees can be fired.
Mm-hmm.
Let's think about that. So they're union people. And it was, I forget what it's called, like Executive Order 99, some blah, 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 blah. But he was putting that in, that if you meet certain criteria, you're out. And, certain whatever those check marks were. That was, I think, one of the first executive orders that Biden came in and said, you can't change that because that's your deep state. That's your embedded, mostly liberal people in all these organizations that it made it very difficult for a non-uniparty president to function. Hence, he tried to do an executive order, he gets shut down. Biden can do 500 of them. A particular president like Trump can barely get 5 done without it going to court and being challenged and blah, blah, blah. So I think we've all seen firsthand from the Trump presidency just how one-sided our agencies are.
Yeah.
And that goes back to that Supreme Court decision, like I said, the Chevron decision, which said these federal agencies can no longer make the laws. The judges cannot defer to them for the law. They can ask their opinion, but they don't have a right. They're not legislative. They're just heads of federal agencies. And that trickles down to all the employees who are involved in all these decisions. And that was part of Project 2025, to not make the same mistake we made in 2016.
Right. So essentially it's just the same, like there's nothing, quote unquote, well, I guess there's nothing really different from what any president has done beforehand. Like this is probably a document that every president has done so far. Like there was probably one for 2020 or whatever it was, 21.
It's not a document. That's the difference.
Well, it's what they're
This
talking
is what
about.
they've always done.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But this time, because one of Trump's weaknesses coming into this new election, and one of the things people like myself complained about was he didn't clear house from day one. He tried to work with the scum, and they were not going to work with him. As a matter of fact, they went out of their way to screw the American people every chance they can. Okay? So we, being the Conservative Party, have to make this big announcement that we're going to do something that was to prove to the voters that Trump's not the way he was before. He learned his lesson. We're going to make sure that we get the right people in right at the start. So the media being what it is, heads blow up. Oh, it's like Nazi Germany all over. They're going to fire everybody and put new people in. And like you were saying, every president does that.
Yeah.
It's common sense to do that. It's your right to do it as president.
But so this is, and I think the problem with the executive orders is as long as we have that, it's just going to keep happening. Because, right, I bet you, and I'll put money on this, the second Trump's in office, he's going to start using executive orders to get rid of whatever Biden did that overdid his original stuff, right? And then the president after that's going to do the same thing. So that's what I mean.
You have to remember, when Trump did executive orders, and this is the difference, I'm only using him as example because he's the most recent in history.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have the Senate, if you don't have the House of Representatives, if you don't have the court, they'll take it to court.
Right.
Nobody takes Biden's to court because we don't have frankly the backbone in the Republican Party to do that.
Right.
If you notice, and I don't necessarily this is a bad thing, but it doesn't work, if you will. There are many different factions in the Republican Party.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have that in the Democrats. And one of my articles that I talk about, and I won't go too deep into it, but it was What Time Is It, right? So recently they took a conservative speaker, Steve Bannon, and they put him in prison. Right. He's in prison for 4 months right before an election, okay? And you can have your opinions about him, good, bad, or whatever. He's in a federal prison for basically a misdemeanor. And it's a misdemeanor charge that we currently have the past Attorney General, Eric Holder, same charge, he never went to jail. Merrick Garland right now, same charge, he's not in jail, okay? So that's total, there's no justice in that. It's the party in power that decides it. Okay, he gets thrown in jail. My biggest issue is, where are the Democrats screaming about this? We have a political prisoner now, okay? They put a primary speaker for one side of politics behind bars 4 months before an election. He can't use cell phone. He can't do the internet. He's not allowed to go online to watch the election. Right. Nothing.
Did he get convicted or no? So he's actually going to prison now or no?
He was convicted and he appealed it.
Right.
A judge decided you can't stay out of prison during the appeal. He appealed to the Supreme Court with the help of the House of Representatives that put together a document. Remember, I talked about it last time.
Right.
3-2, they decided, let's appeal to the Supreme Court that because it was a sham committee, the January 6th committee that issued the subpoena for him, he should not have to go to jail while he appeals this because it's going to fall apart. It was a sham. It was put together poorly by Pelosi, done in the wrong way, and it will be contested. Justice Roberts ruled denied. He's going to jail.
Right.
4 months before an election, one of the biggest vocal people. Now, it doesn't matter what you think of him. Doesn't matter if you agree with his politics or not. The fact of the matter is, if you're going to put him in jail, somebody go arrest Eric Holder and put him in jail. Somebody go after America. It's not fair to choose one party, one voice, and effectively shove the First Amendment in prison 4 months, literally 4 months before the election. And nobody says a word. I haven't heard anybody other than like the Charlie Kirks and individuals who are outraged, and myself outraged about it. They have a platform. But I'm not really saying the Republicans. I'm like, where are the Democrats who believe in our democracy? I think you should shame some of them and say, speak up. Are you all sheep that you just follow what you're told to follow? Speak up. I mean, you make fun of the Marjorie Taylor Greens, and I don't always agree with everything she says, but she's a voice. She speaks up about stuff. Where are the Democrats? Give me one or two.
It's funny because it seems like the ones that are speaking up the most on both sides, so just to give the people on the left some credit, are influencers. So like people that don't really actually have any political power. So what I mean by that is Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk. I'll throw Destiny, Hassan Piker in there. I think his last name's Piker. Even though they're all different opinions and whatever, and people I believe we wouldn't agree with on a lot of things, at least their voices, whereas I feel like in politics, no one's really doing that. And then you have Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert who are on social media, but I don't know if I want those people on social media. You know what I mean?
But
It's kind of a
remember,
weird midpoint.
Steve Bannon was social media.
Yeah, Steve Bannon's another good
Right?
example of someone
So
in this.
if you read Naomi's article, Naomi Wolf, she was heavily involved in the vax. She's a Democrat.
Mhm.
She's always been a Democrat, and she's been on Steve's platform many times to talk about things they've uncovered regarding vaccines and COVID and all this stuff. Okay, if you read her article, it's very poignant because she says, which one of us is next?
Mhm.
It was one thing when you took a license away from a doctor or you took the license away from a practicing attorney. That's fine. It's not good, but you can fight that. They physically took him and threw him in jail.
Mhm.
We have crossed a river here, across the line, if you will, that every American, even if you hate Steve Bannon, every American should be outraged
Mhm.
that they've taken it that far. They threw that man in jail for a misdemeanor into a federal prison where he has no contact with the outside world. Why do you do that? Because it's an election year.
Right.
My friends, that's communism.
Well, that's also like how they tried. Well, I don't know all the details, but how they tried shutting down AJ's war room or InfoWars, whatever. Right? Remember, all of a sudden they were like, "You gotta stop," and it was just like, "Why?" Now, again, we don't have all the information on that. Like maybe he wasn't paying taxes or whatever on the company, but
She references him in the article. She references all these individuals, and she's absolutely right. It's chilling. Some of the individuals who have spoken out are now dead
yeah,
of other topics that political, and she lists them in that article. And it's a real wake up call where for all these other names that you mentioned, who's next?
yeah,
What's to stop them now?
we might be next, Ma. We might be the next ones getting shut down. Guess what?
Am I
I
kidding you
identify
that
as a gamer. YouTube.
when it's that blatant, Christopher, it becomes, I mean, we got a taste of it during the, the J6 and the COVID and whatever,
Right.
of how the backlash to individuals that don't necessarily agree on certain topics. And as she said, it's one thing to deplatform me, it's one thing to do these things. But now when you're physically taking somebody and throwing them in jail to silence them
Mhm.
on a misdemeanor charge, and you're not doing that to everybody, okay? That's not democracy anymore. And we all need to be concerned. Everybody. That's why I say, when are they going to start shaming the Democrats? How about one of them speak up? They're lock, stop, and barrel. They don't say boo. They just follow along and do what they're told and vote the way they have to do. You know what? Maybe it's time we start giving them some difficult times to say, how about, somebody take a stand and say, this is wrong to put one person in jail for something and you didn't do it for all the others
Right.
right before an election.
So you know what we do? Just in case, we go down to Alabama and we get to these vending machines to start the revolution. So I saw this. I actually saw this yesterday. Hot button issue: vending machines selling gun ammunition at Alabama grocery stores. Now, I have to believe this is because of what couple reasons. This can go one of two ways. Really, just because it's a conservative state, everyone's concealed carry anyway, so you might as well just get your bullets. Also, they could probably sell them for cheaper. But also, when you look at all the crime going on in a lot of these other major cities, did you see what just happened in, I believe it's California, where it's like 100 people
now
just break into a gas station and clean the place out. 100.
Yeah.
Did
Yeah,
you
I
see
saw
that? It was it was like that.
Yeah.
Like, it's amazing what you can get done with 100 people. Right? So,
Yeah.
but that's why I wonder what all this is for, just
Well,
because
I think part of it-
I like to think because it's just Alabama and this is what they do. I like to think that there's no real motive behind it.
I think for those people who own guns, there was a period of time there where you couldn't even get ammunition anymore, right?
Oh yeah.
They weren't making it. I forget what the issues were. And the idea that to have vending machines in the state, it's kind of an in your face to those individuals who look at a gun and think it's going to shoot by itself without anybody touching it. They're
Right.
so fearful of guns and they want it controlled so much. The same people that believe in AI for your president so they can hide the story, and people throwing other just. So, I personally, I'm not afraid of gun ammunition and I'm not afraid of guns. I don't want pointed at me by some deranged person.
Right.
And if they do, I hope I have a gun to respond. But I don't have a problem with it. if Alabama's fine with it and they don't have an uptick in gun violence because of it, who knows? Maybe you'll find that because the good guys have ammunition, there are fewer bad guys.
Yeah. I Yeah, I guess that is a positive, but there's also bad guys that could just walk in and get ammunition as well, right? Like,
They're gonna get it anyhow, Chris. They're
yeah,
gonna get it anyhow. Same thing with gun control. All you're doing is controlling the good people who have the guns because the bad guys aren't going to follow the gun control laws anyhow. They don't.
yeah, I guess that is true, but I'm just wondering, like, let's say I'm someone who's anti-gun. What stops me from going in there with 10 grand and just buying up all the ammunition, taking it home and doing whatever with it? Or just hoarding ammunition. And that's what we should do. We should go down there, buy it all, then sell it for double, ma. Capitalism. Capitalism.
Don't allow it.
Yeah. But
I don't know. I should probably know, but I don't know the rules and regs about taking ammunition across borders. You can't take guns.
I have to believe it's very similar to fireworks. Like, you're not supposed to take it over the border.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know there's all sorts of rules. If you have a gun, like in New Jersey, you have to keep the gun and the bullets separate. So all the time.
I meant it. Let's go down a dark rabbit hole real fast. I watched a show last night, or a movie called Snow Society. Did you see this movie?
No.
It's about. Oh God! It's about. I recommend you watch it, even though it's in Spanish. But it's about a rugby team back in 1974. Their plane goes down over Chile, or however you want to pronounce it, in the Alps, and they're not found. They had to survive 72 days. It's based on a real story in the snow.
Oh yeah,
That's
they did another movie that's been done before. Yes, the cannibals. They
had to eat each other. Yeah, just to survive. And I was thinking, right? So we can't eat raw meat from like cows and stuff and chickens and whatever unless it's been sanitized and whatever. Not sanitized. What's the word? Dewormed, all that stuff. Can you eat humans raw? Like, how do you know humans don't have worms, right?
These people were starving.
I know, but I'm just saying in general. I understand why they did it. I'm just saying in general. Do you have to worry about that with eating humans? Do you have to cook humans either way?
These people were starving.
I understand that. I'm saying though.
I'm telling you, there's not an issue. It does. Well, first of all, most humans will not have worms. Now, there's a disgusting thing on the show. One of my sites about a legitimate surgery in
I saw
America.
it. Yeah, and they had the worms pulling out. Yeah.
Okay. It does happen.
Right.
But for the most part, humans don't have the same type of diseases that animals can get.
Okay, that was my question, because I wasn't sure, like, if someone had worms in their body, right, you would know before you ate them, right? That's what I mean. Like, I'm not talking survival. I'm just saying in general, if you were to eat someone, I don't my neighbors are probably like, what the hell is going on?
I know, really. Right. There are people out there that have parasites in them and they don't know it until it gets really bad and something happens.
Right.
So,
but if you're taking a gamble, like what I'm saying is if I was to take a gamble on eating a human, and what are the odds of me getting a virus in comparison to the odds of me eating a cow raw and getting parasites? Is it the same?
Something happened too is the bodies were frozen.
Right.
A lot of things don't survive, like a lot of parasites, bacteria. I think some worms, they're not going to survive. They're going to die too.
But how fast?
An organism that's frozen.
Right. I thought that was more so with
heat. Right away. I think they got desperate and they realized we have to start doing this. I think it was a big issue at the time.
Yeah. Again, you're talking about the survival. I'm not talking about the survival aspect. Obviously, they had to do what they had to survive. Even though there's a few things in there where I was like, this is far-fetched or it doesn't make any sense. Like, why did these people not do certain things sooner? But that's besides the point. I'm just saying, like, from the perspective of eating someone, what are the odds of you getting worms from a human or vice versa to someone eating like a cow or a chicken? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'll go back to what I said. I'm not a scientist, but humans, not all, most humans don't have that level of bacteria and diseases in them like animals that are out in a field with mud, with this, with that, eating, grain that's just dumped or excess food that they find. Keep in mind, pigs eat anything. That's why a lot of religions don't like to eat pigs because they're gross. They'll eat legs. They'll eat anything. So they really, it needs to be checked, cleaned, and whatever before humans can cook it, and consume it.
Right.
You're not supposed to eat raw anything. It has to be boiled to the point to kill all contaminants. In the case of humans, there's also a factor too. Like recently in India, 2 young people died because of the brain disease from water,
Right.
from playing in a pool or some sort of water. It was an odd looking water, right?
Like
So there are
Fertilla or
parts
something
of
like
the
that.
world where you probably have a better chance of encountering parasites and whatnot.
Right.
Like think about it. India uses ivermectin on a regular basis. That's like aspirin for them. Ivermectin kills parasites. That's why
Right.
the FDA recently said, yeah, it's okay to use it for COVID. Okay, it kills parasites, and that's a staple for them because they deal with virus, germs, worms, all that stuff all the time. And based on the fact that it's so hot, those things thrive there, and they don't have the sanitary conditions that most Western cultures do.
Right.
But their bodies adjust to it. So, there are certain dead bodies. I can't believe we're having this conversation. That
I know. I was just
human I'm going to eat. I would rather eat a Westerner than somebody from the Middle East or whatever.
Well, I'm just saying. I was just curious because we were watching this movie last night, and I was just like, "Can you do that and not have to worry about getting parasites?" Because, like in my head, and I don't know if maybe you ingrained this on me, but if you eat any raw meat, you're basically getting parasites.
Yeah.
Like you should always cook it through. But that's just kind of like how, grades of meat are in our country. So,
Well, steak tartare used to be a delicacy, which
right.
is just basically very low cooked meat.
Yeah, which is
And
disgusting.
well, again,
I had it once and I was like, I'm good.
I know somebody, she would be like 2 generations ago, that had it. That was a different time. And humans also too.
That
People
had
have
what?
different enzymes. Steak tartare. A long, long time ago. I want to say it was, by now she probably had it 100 years ago.
Right, but you and I had it.
I've never had steak tartare.
Yeah, you have, and I'll tell you why. I know you have. We all had it when we went to some restaurant. I feel like we were up in Lake George or something, and one of the appetizers was steak tartare, and it was just like a taste testing thing. It was you, me, Dad, Kenny, and I believe Michael. That had to be.
All right, I gotta believe it's been cooked more than just raw. Like maybe it's tartare, but by a higher heat standard, because you just can't have raw meat in it.
Right. Yeah,
Too
it was
risky.
the tartare. It was like that much. It was like a cube. You don't remember
Okay.
this? This was somewhere in.
I don't remember, but I'm not a big fan of.
Ask Dad that
raw.
one. See if he remembers.
He might. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he might have had it. He's a big steak person.
I was not a fan of it. I felt like I was chewing gum.
Beef is an interesting one in that you could get that. It's a long name, but it's basically brain disease, and you won't know it for decades.
Tripped.
No, it begins with a C, like Khrushchev something.
I got you.
It's a brain disorder from you can pick it up through meat, beef, and you may not know it for years. It's not like a parasite that starts growing right away. It's something that's.
There you go. Wow, good call. So it's called prison disease, but its real name is Creutzfeldt-Jacobs disease. CJD is what it stands for. What is it? Sometimes in many cases, I want to know what the side effect is.
It's mental, cognitive. Yeah. It like eats at your brain eventually. It's a really harsh, debilitating. But my point was, you don't get it right away. It could take a long time before it starts to eat away at your brain. So you could have had a burger 10 years ago that's affecting you. You don't know it.
Right. And they have to figure it out. Damn. So just for those of you wondering, rapidly developing dementia, difficult walking and changes in gait, jerking movements of the muscles, hallucinations, muscle stiffness, confusion, fatigue, difficulty speaking. Mother.
President Biden.
Oh, God. Yeah, unfortunately.
With corn pop.
Yeah, geez. Blood tests, nervous system. Interesting.
I can't joke about it. These poor people that suffer from it, and there's nothing you can do. I mean, it's
Zins, nicotine seems to help. All right, let's.
Well, I always find it amazing that people, like I said, say my grandmother, because she's much older than other people my age, grandmothers, that generation, their bodies could handle more than we could handle.
Yeah.
Even though they didn't have the cooking techniques and everything else, so they must have had different enzymes, different makeup that allowed them process it, or maybe they didn't. More of them died from stuff they never even knew. They just assumed there were other causes. And as time has gone on, like our bodies are weaker. And we got to cook more. We have to do more. When you think of what they used to do in the pioneer days, the things they ate, the things they did, or even think of animals, the stuff we pump into animals, dogs and cats nowadays.
Yeah.
Back then, these animals were out roaming around. They didn't have ear infections. If they did, nobody cared. They were eating. I was driving up to grandma's. There was a woman walking a baby in a stroller, and a dog was drinking from a puddle in the parking lot. Right. And my first reaction was, oh, that's so disgusting. But then again, that's what
they do. Yeah.
It's like thirsty.
Shit. What was I gonna say? Hold on. It'll come to me. Well, Oh yeah. So little YouTube drama right now. So slight YouTube drama. There's a famous YouTuber named Dr. Mike who's literally a registered doctor, and he does a podcast. And he had a guy on that talked about. He's a well-known doctor, and he was one of those anti-vax guys, so you probably know who he is, but he was talking about how there's studies that show that you live longer with cigarettes by smoking cigarettes. And the question, really, I don't think that's true, but I was thinking about it, was like, some of the oldest people I know were heavy smokers. Right? Like, I'm thinking about it, I'm like, let's see, grandma's 90, she smoked, not regularly, not anymore, but smoked at a time. I'm thinking of friends that are now in their 80s, 70s, 80s who have beaten their life expectancies. So it's just kind of funny. I'm like, maybe there is some truth to it. Obviously, there's not. But
anymore. Yeah, I think like your grandmother, she quit before your uncle was born. That's umpteen years ago. And a lot has to do with, they say if every time, as soon as you quit, you add 7 years to your life, or for every year you quit. And cigarettes were different. Right?
Yeah.
Some people used filters back then. They had better quality, blah, blah, blah. It's like when people compare pot today to pot back. Well, when I was in high school in 1970, we had pot all the time. It's a very different product than it was back then. And people's reaction to it is very different than today. So, and you have to factor in too, Americans or Westerners will say today, if people haven't noticed, I think we've talked about this in the podcast, you would think we are the most unhealthy country in the world, because every other commercial is,
fast food
and acids, and for your eyesight, and for hearing, and your heart,
with all the disclaimers at the bottom of, if you take this, you might die.
Right, we're so heavily medicated. And just as an aside, the woman transgender who shot up the Covenant the school in Tennessee. They refused to release her letter, and a judge just decided that we're not releasing her manifesto. Don't know why, and they're fighting it because they want it released. But they did get a report on her mental condition and mental state, and a writing about she's been on so many drugs since she was young. They kept, quote unquote, trying out different things for her. Before she was transgender, I believe. Her parents made a comment that, till they finally found one that worked for her. And I know there's a woman, Kerry is her name. She's John Kerry's cousin, but she's been fighting this fight for a while now about, all these shooters, all these individuals of whatever ilk, not just transgender, but anybody. Nobody ever goes back to the doctors and says, why were you prescribing all these medications to her? They're never held accountable. And I think that has an impact to an overall health in our nation. I think a lot of young people, oh, my mother smokes, so I can smoke. Yeah, but your mother wasn't on
every drug imaginable.
Adderall or, antidepressants or all this other stuff. And that all feeds into it too. And we didn't eat junk like they do today, processed foods like you do today. All that plays into it.
Yeah, one of my friends, she smokes, and she's on Adderall or Vyvanse, whatever. And I was like, man, you look really thin, because it's just killed. Like, her appetite's just gone. So she looked dangerously, well, not dangerously, but she looked thinner than she normally does. And I was like, geez, gotta calm it down, dude. But
I don't know in what realm. I don't know what the doctor's position was to make that case, other than if we looked at the statistics, because I gotta believe that there are more things playing into it than just smoking, because there's literally nothing that benefits the lungs, breathing, whatever, to add tar to it. I don't know why. Well, the things that come into you, the nicotine and everything, scientifically, I don't think anybody's proven that that's a benefit to your lungs in any way, shape, or form.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know if he's spouting statistics. I think there's got to be more things playing into it.
Well, the reason why there's drama was because that guy sent a cease and desist to that podcast. Like, it's kind of a whack story. It might have just been
Yeah.
for publicity or whatever, but yeah. So I was just curious because it came up and that was kind of the drama, but I know that they're finding more and more on the vaping stuff not being as bad for you. Like there's not really a negative, but you're still putting water vapor in your lungs. Like there's the negative is like 10 years from now you'll cough and you'll taste the raspberry or whatever the flavoring is, but they're not finding any real negatives to the actual doing it, except for maybe pneumonia if you're really effing
Here's
up.
the question: why? It's similar to
The
drinking.
nicotine.
Yeah, but then just take a nicotine patch, or like you're saying,
Right.
why
Well,
put that
those
strain on your body? There's no real need to do it
right.
other than, and I feel like the nicotine, the drinks, the caffeine, even excessive coffee. I'll throw that in because I'm a coffee drinker.
Coffee addict, actually, mother.
You're compensating for something for some other reason.
Right.
Not getting enough sleep, you need your caffeine. You're not, I don't know, eating well, or you're trying to lose weight, so you smoke, right? It's like they're trying to compensate, and sometimes you got to go back to the root problem and say, do you really need to vape? Like, what's the benefit?
Right. There's more negative. Well, vaping was big because Zins weren't a thing back then, right? But when vaping started when I was a freshman in college, that was when it really took off. So back then we didn't have the nicotine pouches that didn't have tobacco in them, right? It was like what's that stuff? Chewing tobacco is really the only alternative. But now we have the safer way of doing it, which is like the Zyn pouches. But to your point, with the idea of putting anything into your lungs that's not air is kind of a bad idea, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. That's where the
people got by for many, many generations without Zyn packs too. So I guess you gotta ask yourself, like, what the benefit you're getting from it. Not to go into detail, I don't want to rehash it, but why do you need what's the difference now that to function a person needs that benefit versus from past? And that's my point about even alcohol. You don't need alcohol. Nobody needs alcohol other than to sterilize, right? Sterilize your hands or whatever. There's nothing wrong with having a drink because it does have calming benefits. It does it. Same thing with like people say.
Right, you don't want to do anything excessive, right?
Right. It doesn't. It does kill off some brain cells depending what you're drinking. Mm-hmm. And no, drinking is not a positive. There's no
positive,
to drinking. If you need to calm yourself down, that's because you're stressed. That's the problem, right? Or you just enjoy a drink because the flavor. Okay, that's fun, but you're getting some other benefit out of it. And normally, only a certain type of person gets addicted to alcohol because they have other issues, right? Yeah. And they drown their sorrows, like I would say. Same thing with vaping. If you get addicted to it,
which is the problem,
right? If you get vape once in a blue moon, because what's the benefit? Calms you down?
Well, the nicotine benefits, but
I guess, but so
still
you
a terrible way to do it. Right? You're still throwing something into your lungs,
That's what I'm saying, and we're seeing the backlash now with the Ozempics and the.
Well, hold on, Wegovy. They're seeing some positive results in cancer mitigation. I don't know how that works out, but I don't know what kind of cancers maybe it just goes to show the sugar really is affecting us, and the processed sugars are really affecting us worse than we thought. But
it does help people who have diabetes, which is what it was originally
it's the purpose.
Made for.
The purpose for it.
Now we've tried to repurpose it into something else, and it's working. But, if I'm obese and I can't lose weight, I will consider that even if it costs me, I don't know, like, some people for bowel functions get messed up. Okay. You got to weigh, what's worse, being obese and no way possible losing that weight versus, getting it off quicker. If that's the case, I just don't see the benefit. Certain types of things that we do when you look back and say, well, do you really need the Ozempic, or is it just finding a medical way to get the weight off healthy and in a way that's going to last? Because my understanding is once you're on these things, you're on them for life.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But all right, let's do a quick 180. Harsh reality for record number computer science grads. Software employment has peaked. Yeah, this is kind of what we talked about when Ansu was on the podcast, right? We're already at that point where we don't need any more computer software engineers until AI jobs start taking over, in the sense of like there's going to be tons and tons of companies making their AIs and need employees. But even then, How long is that going to
I
last?
don't think that they're saying that, Chris. As a matter of fact, well, since 2022, over $528,000 have been workers have been laid off in the software development industry. 17% drop since 2018. In the last 18 months, software publishers have been down 30% year over year decline in full-time jobs. AI won't help in the future either. So they need to rethink their degrees. So for all these young people going in for these jobs, you're not going to make the money you think you're going to make if there's even a job for you, because the ultimate is AI will take over these functions.
Yeah, you don't need them.
They won't need these engineers and these coders and whatnot. So it's an interesting, it's a dilemma because, another industry is or job function will be eliminated.
Yeah.
Maybe to your point, the short term, they'll need some to retrofit the AI, but you're basically
Yeah, you're not going to
putting
pick the college kids. You're going to end up picking the ones that are seasoned veterans that were at. It's gonna be the veterans that like started with AI and building it, the Altmans, the guys that are working at OpenAI, and then once they all die off, then you're gonna see the spike in computer science people, right? So
but I don't know what they need them for.
I don't know. That's something we'll have to see in the future, but.
Yeah.
Again, all majors are kind of like this, though. I think computer science, it sucks because it's directly impacted, but
Yeah.
you're going to see a lot of degrees become obsolete, like
Yeah.
obsolete. Finance, I
Yeah.
think, shot. I think we're going to get to the point where stock market and stocks are going to be completely based on AI prediction.
Probably, or
Yeah.
the bulk of it is going to be done. A lot of it's automated now,
Exactly.
but with human input automating it. To your point, down the road, AI until it becomes a disaster.
Banking.
We'll use that.
Yeah.
Banking.
You
Absolutely.
just need one. I couldn't tell you what the number is in the sense of I don't know how many people you actually need to manage an AI, and what I mean by that is just make sure it's making all the right decisions. Like make sure that my bank, the money that I transfer goes to my bank account and blah blah blah. Like I don't know if you need someone to just watch over it. I don't know how many people that is, right?
Yeah.
So and those
Well, I don't
people
think
don't have
they
to be
know
computer
either.
people. Yeah.
You don't know how accurate the AI is going to be until
Right.
it's up and running.
Yeah.
And to your point, eventually AI is going to take it over and tell the banker, no, you're wrong. We did it right. Goodbye.
Yeah, and then you'd have to have such a foolproof AI. I was watching another podcast, actually with the same podcast, the Dr. Mike podcast. He had a guy on who's I wish I knew his name. He's also a Dr. Mike, but he's a workout freak. He was I believe he was a competitive bodybuilder, but he was talking about how he thinks by 2035 we're going to get to the point where even homeless people will have automated technology kind of butlers that will be able to like do certain things for you. Yeah. Well, he says that's how cheap it's going to get because it's going to be so cheap to do and whatever. Now, again, he's not an expert in that field, but when we see how fast these chat GPTs are going, I mean, it's not out of this world. Sam Altman said that. So from Chat GPT 4 to Chat GPT 5, which is coming out fairly soon, will make Chat GPT 4 look stupid. That's scary to think about. We're moving that fast. But I don't know if you saw this today. Apparently, OpenAI just got hacked. Right? So
really?
Yeah, which is kind of hilarious because, or what's the word? Not hilarious.
Ironic.
Ironic. Thank you. It's like, so wait, you're not even using this AI to automate your own company, or is it that you don't trust your AI enough to actually implement it? Right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So
Conundrum.
yeah, I just think that's funny.
I mean, that's the stupidity of it. And this is what I'm saying. Sometimes the stupid people of the past who didn't have these highfalutin degrees are a hell of a lot smarter than these tech geniuses.
Right.
We're going to have AI robots for homeless people. How about you freaking build housing for the homeless people first?
So you'd have an AI that does that.
Fine. Then why would they be homeless?
Right.
That's the absurdity of it. How about we use all this genius to feed the world?
Right.
So I don't have to be taxed to do it. Okay. How about you find a way to manage, I don't know, say the Middle East so that they're not fighting? But it's just the absurdity of the stuff that comes out of their mouth. Right. They're working on this level like, well, we don't care about the peons. They'll just eventually die off. I don't care.
Exactly.
Right? And we're going to worry, we get the higher end I didn't bring the article in, but there was one from Klaus, nut
Klaus.
job in Europe, who basically said we need to force people to accept AI. It's just it. It's our duty to
That's
force
kind of like what
them.
the Huffle poster is. Huffle, whatever
Right.
it's called.
But he's taken it to an extreme. He's one of these people that just feels he's a total elitist. He doesn't care about the peons under. If you're not worth $1 billion, you're expendable. Doesn't care. So he's like, we just need to
Right.
force humanity to get used to the idea that there will be no humanity. Oh, okay, fine. Thanks so much. One individual has decided that for all.
The one that really scares me is they're doing a lot of tests now on how much data the human brain is worth, which means they're getting ready to upload a consciousness. I don't like that. That makes me uncomfortable. I don't like the idea of uploading a consciousness. So
they're going to take it as far as they can until somebody pushes back.
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you're going to have to.
Somebody has to be peons.
Yeah. Or no one pushes back and then we have no one pushes back and we have a Terminator issue. Right? Terminator the movie where they take over. But here's a positive of AI. This is a huge one for us. YouTube's updated erase song tool removes copyright music and leaves other audio. This is going to be, if it works, the greatest thing YouTube has ever done. So what this is, so when we upload content, and the last podcast is a good example. I uploaded the video of in our podcast, I put the video of Reagan putting in that speech. Do you remember the speech of I put it in and it got flagged for copyright because it's owned by someone. So back in the day, well, as of now, I should say, if that happens in a YouTube video and I want to keep my monetization, what I can do is I can splice that part of the video out, right? The problem is it gets rid of all the audio. So you'll have just dead space. Now, YouTube has an AI that is able to just take the song out. So it can tell what's music, what's not. That is so nice because I used to do streams on Twitch, like back when we first started streaming. I would do my YouTube streams and it would cut out the audio. Right. So it would just be no audio because there was a song going over. But now I can just hit a button and it'll process it out and it'll take all the audio out. So when it gets uploaded to YouTube at the end of a live stream, it just automatically takes it out and I can monetize, which is an awesome feature. So it's about time YouTube does something about that because the amount of monetization I lose because of copyrighted stuff is annoying. And it's never true. It's usually like when my mom's throwing out terms that YouTube does not like. Remember, my mom is the only one that's ever gotten me a channel strike.
And I'm damn proud of that. Yeah. I'm damn proud of it.
Oh, great. I can't wait for YouTube to see that. The sad liberal at YouTube that sees that.
Don't care.
Yeah. But this is going to help a lot of YouTubers out, especially because it allows you. So unlike videos, for those of you that don't know how it works, when you do a live stream, your monetization really doesn't happen until after, unless you set it. So for me, my live streams are set to no monetization, and then afterwards I'll monetize it. So when people watch so during the stream, you won't have any advertisements. After the stream, if you go back and watch the next day, then you'll have advertisements. So a lot of times when I do that, because of copyrighted material, it will not allow it. But now I can just hit this button and hopefully it'll just get rid of whatever music's in there and it'll just post it without any monetization issues or copyright issues.
But you won't have dead air?
No, because my voice is good. My voice is still in there.
Oh,
but
okay.
Yeah, it's really only I should have used a different example. It's like imagine if we were playing a song all the way through this podcast and it demonetizes it. Right. At the end, I can just get rid of it, which is really nice. So it's cool for us YouTubers who have to deal with copyrighted music a lot. Because a lot of games use
AI. That's an AI feature.
Yeah, it's going to be a YouTube AI bot. I'm willing to bet. I mean, I don't know how else they would do it. I have to believe everything going forward is going to be some kind of AI.
I don't know.
At a certain level, but yeah, I see it as a positive.
Let me read the quote. Klaus Schwab tells elitist followers they must force humanity into a world ruled by AI and other dehumanizing technology.
God, I love Klaus Schwab. Holy God.
You guy's a freak.
Yeah, really. God. Yeah, I hear Matt Sprague talk about that guy, and it's never kind words.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Between him and Soros.
Human being looks at somebody like that and says, "Who the hell are you to say I should be ruled by AI?" Like, as an American who believes that, I pick my ruler, I pick people who they work for me, blah 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 blah
Right.
blah. I got this clown over in Europe, and then I get enough morons in this country who supposedly are governed in our government believing what this guy says.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're just gonna have to face
I have a
reality.
feeling they're paid to believe in what that guy says.
I don't know, but I
Between
just
him and Soros.
for those of us who believe in individual rights and freedoms and everybody's equal, I look at somebody like this. I'm sure he has a lot of money. I'm sure he has more money, the expression more money than God, but he ain't God.
Yeah.
So I don't really need him. And it scares me to think that people are so, oh, AI is so wonderful.
It kind of makes me
blah, blah,
appreciate
blah."
the fact that Elon's still at the top and he's at least somewhat down the middle, you know? Thank God he's not one of those guys and can throw.
Well,
Without him, I think Twitter would be a nightmare right now. I think.
things I've read about him is, he understands the dangers of AI or the
Yeah.
pluses and the pros and cons. Doesn't mean he's doing anything about it. He's stating for us, which I guess that's good because a lot of people of all levels listen to what he has to say or read his platform, and he brings attention to it because most people don't know Klaus Schwab. They don't know this clown. But that doesn't mean it's changing anything, other than he brings it to people's attention. And that is important. People have to understand, everyone, you hear the good stuff. Media tells you the good stuff about AI, how it's going to be so wonderful and change things. But not enough people pause to say, maybe that's not such a good thing.
Yeah.
Not everything about it.
Yeah.
So.
All right, Mom. We just did an hour 30, minus some because we have to cut out like the first 17 minutes. But yeah, that was a pretty solid one. So the only things I have to promote, what did we put out this week? I don't even remember at this point. Well, we had the last podcast. I don't know what I posted on Wednesday. I don't know. Just go check out the videos. I know that we finished Elden Ring. I finished a lot this week. So, yeah, I mean, we could end it there. Besides that, social media, promo code, stream links, Discord down below, and we will see you guys next week for the next podcast. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'll be here. I can't go anywhere.
Yeah, that's right. All right.
And then I'll have even less sleep, but we'll see. It'll be good.